Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome again to this webinar tonight. Hopefully by the end of this hour, you will get a better idea of what it's like to study and train in Singapore while attending one of our local universities. This is part of our series of webinars where we hope to provide you more information, whether it's studying in Singapore, studying overseas, what it's like to be a youth sport parent, how to manage your time as a student athlete. Okay, and we have with us a whole panel of athletes tonight, student athletes. So without further ado, can I ask Utsav to, can you please introduce yourself, give us your name, your sport, your age, what you're doing now in school, what you're studying, and take it away.
Right, sure. Thanks, Leslie, and thanks NYSI for this opportunity. So my name is Utsav. I'm 23 years old. I'm a year 4 undergraduate in NUS, doing law and pursuing a minor in computing as well. And my main sport is cricket. I think beyond that, I think I'll give more details later.
Okay, over to you, Mounisha.
Hi, I'm Mounisha. I'm 20 this year. I'm currently studying year 2 medicine in NUS, and I'm from Waterpolo. Yeah.
And now Xuan.
Hi, I'm Xuan. I'm currently in the Singapore Rugby women's team. I'm studying NUS. I'm doing Sociology and Life Sciences, and I'm turning 20 this year.
Thanks, Xuan. And how about Kerstin next?
Hi, I'm Kerstin. I'm from SMU and I'm studying marketing and communications. And I'm a track and field athlete, mainly a 100-meter hurdler, and on the sideline, I'm a social media influencer as well. So feel free to just throw us any question later relating to sports or education later.
Thanks, Kerstin. And what about Huimin?
Hello, I'm Huimin. I'm a teacher now. I've graduated from uni for about 2 years already, but I've just transited from studying to working because I just graduated from NIE. Yeah, so I'm playing rugby together with Xuan, and I'm turning 28. Yeah.
Okay, congrats on finishing teaching college. So why don't we hear from you guys about why did you choose or end up choosing a local university and what were the motivations behind it? Maybe we can go with Utsav first.
Sure. Okay, so I think when I was about 17 or 18, then I was more or less set on going overseas to US. And the only reason was because my brother went to US. So I thought that would be the default option. But just like all Singaporeans, we like the 5 Cs. And I'm not talking about like condos or like the cash or anything, but I sort of like took out a few factors that would sort of influence my decision to stay locally. So some of them were as follows. So one of them was the cost. I think in terms of cost, a local university is unbeatable because you're really going to save a lot by staying in Singapore. So I think that played a significant role. The other things was, of course, the cost. So there was a point where I started like reading up a lot more about law after I got my admission into NUS law. And I really felt that that was a course that I wanted to do. And I didn't have that option in US. So for a while, I was also considering UK, but I decided to settle in Singapore because, and then I go on to my next C, which is about career. So if I'm actually pursuing a legal career in Singapore, I thought that a NUS law degree would put me in good standing for that. So another thing that you might also want to consider is about culture, the 4th C. So I think there would be certain differences in terms of culture, in terms of like academics in a local university. Sometimes they say that there might be a bit more pressure here. While I wouldn't say, I wouldn't say that's entirely true at all times, but there is also certain merit to it as well. And also, you might also want to consider what kind of sports culture you would want in your university. And I think another aspect of culture would be the independence, because, if you have actually grown up in Singapore with your family, I think really staying alone and being independent has its benefits as well. So for me, my parents moved to KL. So in a way, you could say that I'm a sort of like a foreign student living in Singapore right now because I'm the only one in the family here right now. Right. So, and then of course, the last part is, I mean, another aspect is of course the career in terms of the sports, right? So what kind of opportunities you're going to get by staying locally or overseas. So turns out that because I stayed locally, I was able to be within the setup. And I think that sort of allowed me to have a lot more opportunities than some of my peers who maybe went to UK and could not really come back to Singapore for major tournaments, right? I think I've exceeded my time, so I'll just stop right here for now.
That's okay, Utsav. Thanks. So can I invite maybe Kerstin next? What motivated your choice of SMU?
I think what really motivated me to go SMU because honestly, not many other universities accepted me, and also because SMU is being in the town area, so that was very, very helpful. Because NUS or NTU is pretty far from where my training ground is. My training ground used to be at Sports Hub, so Sports Hub being very close to SMU was very helpful for me, and also because like I also seek help from Mr. Eric as well. So I spoke to him quite a bit about SMU, and I kind of quite like how SMU culture is like. You know, people is a lot more business-ish, you know, not comparing, but people are more business-ish, it being inside a central location. So often we get into contact with many other working adults in the area as well. So we are always taught that we have to present ourselves well. So even in class as well, they also teaches us we must always hold ourselves well, and presentation is so important in our school. They also have courses in my school teach us about how we should present ourselves in the working world, which I thought that this is very important when I got to work in the future. So I felt that in SMU, it would bridge my gap from education to career well when I move on to my career in future. And that's why I chose SMU.
Okay, thanks, Kerstin. Can I invite Xuan to share your perspective?
Yeah, so for me, I think the main reason why I chose to stay in Singapore was that sports has been actually a very big part of my life since young. Before I joined rugby, I was actually in the Singapore karate team for about 10 years. So I think I've been training in Singapore for a very long time. And at the point where I had to decide whether to go overseas to study or stay in Singapore, I just felt that like I wasn't ready to leave this like huge part of me in Singapore and go overseas to study. And even though I can train there, I think like the environment will be very different, and like having my coaches and teammates here, I was like, it was something that I was very used to. So I think I wasn't very ready to leave all this behind. And I think like course wise, I was actually quite satisfied with studying in like a Singapore university, because I think the Singapore universities are like quite well known also, like NUS, NTU, all this, like they're all quite good. So I didn't really see as a necessity to go overseas to study and pursue my interests. Yeah.
Thanks, Xuan. Can I ask Mounisha to share your experience?
Actually, I didn't even apply overseas because like one, I was quite sad doing medicine, and going overseas to study medicine is very expensive, and two, like I knew I wouldn't be able to pursue my sport overseas as much as I can in Singapore, because it's a very like a different environment for water polo in like the UK or the US. And being in a team sport, like teamwork is very important. So if I didn't stay locally, I wouldn't have been able to gel with my teammates and play together with them in a competition. Yeah.
Thanks, Mounisha. Huimin, your turn.
So I didn't really have to consider whether I need to go overseas or not, because my family just wouldn't be able to afford it. And also landing in NTU was like a dream to me, because I was never the brightest kid. So when I graduated from poly and I realized that I could go to uni, I was very happy lah. So I never really had to choose. So NTU so landing in NTU was like a blessing for me lah. Yeah, so I never really had to consider much whether I overseas or local university. Yeah.
Thanks, Huimin. At this time, I would like to ask Leonard Tan. Leonard is my colleague at NYSI. He's the National Youth Head Coach for swimming. Leonard, what do you think from your perspective as a coach, what are some of the benefits of studying locally and what are the possible impact of that on your athletes' performance?
Okay, hi everyone. So I think a few of the points that were covered already from some of the athletes. I think one of the main thing is the lesser financial burden. That's key. Unless you have deep pockets, then I can't say lah. But financial burden is one of those things. You will have, I mean, if you choose to study in Singapore and train in Singapore, you will have the emotional and psychological support needed, especially if you are stressed or tired from training and studying at the same time. There's also very minimal disruption to your daily training environment. And I mean, I've seen it many times that, okay, I can only speak for swimming side, right? Okay, so a lot of the athletes that go overseas, they don't get the same kind of support over there, mainly in the US. I've been to visit some of the programs in the US as well. To be honest, with what we have currently, and I mean, like I say again, I speak for the swimming side, I think there's a good program going on. The support from SSI, NYSI is it's changed and improved over the years, ever since I was an athlete until now. So if anything, I think this is the best time for people to train and study locally. I believe that looking at the speakers in this, or rather the participant in this chat, there are a lot of the student officers from the local uni. So I think the local uni over the years have also done a pretty good job with supporting the national athletes. That's definitely a plus as well.
Okay, thanks, Leonard. So back to the athletes on our panel. The next question is about what are the challenges you face balancing your sports and studies, and how did you overcome these challenges? So maybe we can start with Mounisha this time.
I think my biggest challenge was trying to balance both like training and studying, because 2019 was like the first year I was training like twice a day, and I still had to travel while balancing school. And also like for our team, we traveled a lot towards SEA Games, which meant that I missed like a lot of stuff at the first part of school, and I missed orientation. So like I didn't have anyone I could turn to for help. And unfortunately, like all my competitions coincided with my exams. And cause like everything was quite last minute, I couldn't like cancel or reschedule. So I really overcame it by like approaching a lot of professors and asking for help, and like going to my seniors. And it helped to have like a very understanding coach and like understanding teammates. So if I had to take a training session off to study, they were really like understanding about it, and like everyone was very supportive. Yeah.
Thanks, Mounisha. What about you, Xuan? What was your experience?
For me, I think the hardest part is really to manage my time, because I think in season we can become very busy and we have very little free time to, like catch up with our studies and everything. So I think like there's a lot of self-discipline involved, where we have to make sure to catch up and really like make sure we don't lag behind too much when we go for competitions and things like that. Because I think once we lag behind, it can get quite hard to catch up later on, because we really don't have that time and that luxury like our peers and things like that. Yeah.
Kerstin, how about you?
For me, I think I've been kind of lucky, because like for me, when I couldn't really cope with the school workload and sports, I was able to take leave of absence from school to go full-time training. So last year, actually, I took a gap to go full-time training in attempt to try for SEA Games. And although I didn't make it in the end, but I really tried my best, increasing my training load during that period. And the procedure to apply for this leave of absence from my school was very seamless. I think I only had like 2 or 3 emails correspondence, and Mr. Eric helped me a lot. So maybe that's why it was quite simple for me. I don't have to go through a lot of the back end stuff. I just submitted my application. I supported with my association's backing that I'm a national athlete training for, trying to qualify for this, and the school supported me after, so that was very nice. But that being said, it's not always very smooth sailing, of course. It's good that my school is very supportive of sports people, but initially when I first joined SMU, it was a huge struggle for me trying to have a huge switch from what I had in poly, because I studied one module per month. And suddenly I go to uni, I have to study 5 modules in one go. So that was a huge struggle for me initially. So actually what I learned over the semesters is what you should do is when you go into class, because every time you go to a class, it's always different classmates. At least for my school. I'm not sure about the other school, but if that's the case as well, one good thing to do is when you go enter class, try to make friends with the people around you. And you know why I say that? So when you have to miss class for your trainings or competition, you can text the person, or like, hey, could you help me to record the class, or could you take down notes for me? So that was very helpful. So what I do is I really try to make friends with people, try to exchange Telegram contact, because now we don't really exchange phone number, but Telegram is very big now. So you got this person contact from this class. So you miss something, you can text, hey, you know, I'm gonna miss this. Could you just let me know what am I missing out? So that helped me a lot. Yeah.
That's great, Kerstin. Thanks. What about Huimin?
For me, the biggest challenge, surprisingly, is learning how to take care of myself, because when you have when you have rugby and then you have your studies taking so much away from you, you realize that you might end up not sleeping enough or not eating well. And for my case, I had to bulk up for rugby, so I really have to make sure that I eat properly, rest properly, so that I don't get injured during training, and I can give my best for my studies and my and in rugby. And school-wise, I don't really remember having any difficulties, because NTU was quite understanding when I had to miss a test and all. And I just have to be disciplined now. When I have free time slots, I just have to make sure that I do the thing that is assigned to that time slot. Yeah, like catching up on my readings or things that I've missed if I travel overseas. Yeah.
Thanks, Huimin. And Utsav, what about you?
Right, so I think generally there is a sort of like common thread. So I think there's just 2 things I want to talk about. Like, one is trade-offs and one is support system. So for me, when I came from JC to university, I had this rude shock, right? That suddenly there's so much of pressure, and honestly, there is clearly like no easy answer, because you really have to like prioritize your time, and at some point there has to be some kind of trade-off that you have to make. So I think that's why it's very important to have some kind of goal, like end in mind, as to what exactly you're there to achieve, because that will also help you to keep your expectations more grounded. And as for the second point, which is about support system, I remember there was one day I was writing a 6,000 word essay, and it was like a few days before the submission date, and I was training, and our trainings are like normally like 8 p.m. to sometimes they'll go up to like 12 a.m. at night, because normally people will be working, and then at night we'll have those trainings. And I just had no way of like finish. I knew that I couldn't do a good job if I submitted it on the actual deadline. So I sort of had a lot of anxiety during that period. But what it just took was just for me to send an email to the prof, and I just got like the nicest reply, and he gave a nice like 1 week extension. But I think that empathy and that understanding is something that it's not very easy to get if you go overseas. And generally, I think like among professors, among NUS or like any other university in Singapore, they generally have some kind of understanding about what you might be going through. So I think that is something that was a bit like life-changing for me. So I really appreciated that.
Okay, thanks, Utsav. So just a reminder for our guests tonight, if you have a question, feel free to put it in the chat, or just raise your hand, put a +1 in the chat, and then you can speak and ask your question. So the next question I would like to direct to Chai Liang, Law, and Eric. It's about how the local universities support student athletes, and what has been your experience over the years, what works, what doesn't work. So maybe, Law, would you like to go first?
I'll let the other unis go first.
Always so gracious, Law. Who would you like to arrow? I give you Eric and Chai Liang to arrow.
The most handsome one, Eric. Yeah.
Lama, you say Chai Liang not handsome. Like, he's more handsome than me. Okay. Okay, I just speak for SMU. I think when I went into SMU, I made it a part of my role to help the athletes. And I think SMU was, it's a fantastic university in the sense that it's basically just getting in touch with the faculties, and they're all really very, very supportive about sports. So, so it's a matter of just getting in touch with them. What they need to know and to do is just to know things in advance, right? So that's why I coordinated this with the athletes to say, hey, if you've got your plans for the semester or for the year even, to say, come and sit down with a faculty member and then go through the plans to say, what are the things that you need for the semester? Whether it's will you be missing exams? Will you be taking leave? All this sort of things. So when we managed to sort it out early, and so everything can work. Even exams, you got to skip exams or you have to make up exams. If you arranged it early, I think the faculty will be very helpful. So I would say almost all the faculties are very helpful. Okay, not say except for law, but just that I hardly have any athletes who's studying in law in SMU because it's very rigorous. I'm not saying that NUS it isn't, but I don't know, someone who's in, it depends on the sport as well. I think perhaps athletics and swimming could be in law, but some other sports like table tennis, badminton, where they have to train hours, with the national team, then they probably can't be in certain courses. So it's just that makeup kind of thing. So SMU very supportive. It's a matter of coordination, and then we can work wonders. Even and of course the pedagogy is very helpful, and also the modular system where the students need to bid, and that's where also the registrar office is very helpful in the sense that if you do it early, they can even give priority bidding to our national athletes who can bid for courses outside of their that doesn't clash with their training times. So that was very helpful. Okay, kind of thing. Yeah.
Thanks, Eric. You get to pick who's next.
This Chai Liang left, right? Oh, so there's law. Chai Liang, since he's so ready.
Hi, everyone. This is Chai Liang from NTU. Thanks, Eric. Actually, I would believe NTU, SMU, NUS, to a greater extent, not the local universities, we are quite similar. We are all decently good partners with SSI and NYSI. So what we are offering the students are quite similar to a great extent. I think I'd rather talk about the challenge rather than what we support you guys. What I realize is even as you guys are in the national setups, there are different levels of athletes in the setup in that sense. So while some of us are in the setup preparing for major competitions, those are a lot more clear-cut in the way how the universities can support you. Or some of us are in the training squad. Those are the ones sometimes it's more difficult. You are committing to your training, all those things, not knowing whether you make the team or not. Those are the ones that actually needs a lot more delicate so-called coordinations, because unlike telling your professors or your course coordinator you are going to SEA Games in next November, or you could only tell them that you are still in the setup, or you try your best to make the team, or if things doesn't turn out well, you are not selected to go, you pretty much still join back the school and carry on with your class, carry on with your exams, so on and so forth. So that portion to me is the most challenging part for young athletes coming to local universities. Actually, those who are in the tier one in the teams, pretty much as long as you're healthy, you should make it. Those are actually more straightforward in terms of your planning and everything else. Those in the squad sense are more challenging. So this is that portion. I think you guys for your considerations. Yeah.
Thanks, Chai Liang. Lo, your turn.
Yeah, so we are very much similar, SMU, NTU. So I think many of the universities a few years ago signed some kind of agreement or commitment with Sports SG, Singapore Sports Institute, to say that we will be taking care of our athletes. All right, and that is true. Very flexible planning to support our athletes' endeavor in representing the nation, right? So
that agreement has actually gone through all the deans of the universities. And you know how big NUS is. Many deans, and it has to be committed by all the deans of the respective faculties to say that, yes, we will support our national athletes. We will make our curriculum and examinations assessment flexible. Right. So for some of you who may not know, we had 1 year where we had 3 or 4 national water polo players, of which 3 of them was from our medicine school. All right, and all of them had to leave for SEA Games. Hospital attachments, exams was an issue, you know, but that was all work around. And it wasn't work around in the sense that people were, oh, why do you have to go overseas during this time? But it really was working around with the Singapore mindset in mind. We were actually very excited for our students, and we wanted to make it happen. To small little things like getting a car park label. Some of our national athletes, because immediately after school, they will have to drive down to a venue somewhere to train. All right, and in NUS, you actually may not get a parking space, or you have to actually try to get a car park coupon that allows you to park your car, you know. So small things like that we try to make. Yeah. All right. So yes. So today we have we have never had an incident where an athlete who needed to perform national duties is held back because of schoolwork or examinations. Yeah, we even, many years ago, just before I joined NUS, we even had a sports officer to travel with the athlete so that the exams could be administered overseas while the athlete was competing. Yeah.
Thanks, Law.
Sorry, Les, can I just jump in a little bit here?
Please go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I thought to just add this in. I thought maybe it's important to know as well. I mean, I talk about forward planning and to know its impact. Maybe to give this example. So we had a sailor, I think you all know about Kimberly Lim. She is in accountancy in SMU, and she was on this Olympic campaign to qualify for, was supposed to be 2020. Yeah, so she actually managed, we were forward planning with the NSA involved, and then she managed to tick off, like, in principle, 7 consecutive semesters. That's huge. Okay, so that means the faculty actually supported her to say, okay, well, every semester you come back and see how you're doing, but you have to be away for training, so be it, kind of thing, but just keep in touch. And she really can take some summer modules, and that helped a bit. But basically, she was away for quite some time, right? And because of that, she managed to qualify for the Olympics, but of course it's postponed to next year. So that's how huge or big that help can be if we are really planning ahead for the athletes. Yeah.
Thanks, Eric. At this time, I see a couple of questions in the chat, so I'll just take one up now, and that's from Alina Xiao. The question is, what if my training has frequent changes, and how should I communicate that to the school? So maybe Utsav, I'm sure you've found yourself in that kind of situation. How would you handle it?
So with regards to communicating it with the school, initially, like I thought that, you know, even though you do sports sometimes, you sometimes feel like you still somehow can squeeze out some time to do the work and then submit it on the actual deadline. So sometimes you really end up pushing yourself. So I think what I learned from that experience that I just shared is that if you actually just communicate and be clear, there are people to listen, there are people to understand. And I think that's sort of the meat of it. So I guess communication is critical. Yeah, and also, like, sometimes you realize that there are more options that are available than you actually might think that there are. And I think nowadays, especially after like post-COVID, right? So there are a lot of other ways to administer things. Like right now we have exams on Zoom. So there'll be a Zoom proctoring and you're actually doing your exam online. So I think that moving forward, there'll be a lot of creative ways in which problems can be solved.
So what about you, Kerstin? What was it like if you had a competition coming up and you had to juggle your sports and studies and you had to communicate with the school? What was the whole process like for you?
For me, I've been quite lucky again because my competition haven't clashed with any of my exams so far. But I know there are some people who clashes, so I know that they just need to inform the school. The school can make arrangement for like a makeup exam instead. Yeah. But like for me, so what I will miss is definitely I will miss school. You know how class participation points is important in our school, but our teachers are pretty understanding. You know, you're not missing class for no reason. It's a valid reason going overseas to compete. So they're always very helpful. They always make sure they'll give you some work to help as well. Some professors, but the professors I had quite lucky as well. They'll give me like advices and some extra exercises that I could do, and I can always go back to them to ask them for any help for the classes I've missed. They also have this time slot for students to approach them to ask about any questions you have or if you don't understand the class at all. So whenever you go for these sessions, it's usually like you and the professor alone or like a group of friends if you want to go together who don't understand. So the time you get from your professor is very dedicated. So you can really clarify any questions you have. And this is something that every professor have. So if you don't understand anything, if you miss any class, you can always go for these sessions. Inform a prof and can just go down. Our professors are all very helpful so far.
Thanks, Kerstin. Leonard, if I may come to you now, from your perspective as a coach, you've seen a few student athletes over the years. What are some of the successes or maybe even the not so successful balancing acts you've seen, and what are some of the pitfalls that people should be wary about?
The number one pitfall, I think, with training and juggling training and studies is burnout, mental health issues. But I mean, I've had swimmers who went through some of those things. So I coach at the National Training Center, and I mean, we do have a good mix of athletes who studied overseas. I mean, those who study overseas, whenever they come back, they'll continue training at the National Training Center. But we do have quite a few who are actually studying in local uni right now, and I think they are quite successful. Madeline, who's won consecutive SEA Games gold medals in the 53. She studied in NTU. Dong Zhenwei, who's studying in SMU right now. Even so, I mean, how they balance their work, they really got to communicate with their coaches. Number one, because at the National Training Center, we actually train 10 times a week. So doubles almost every day, and then singles on Wednesday and Saturday. So it's quite a lot of pool time. So we spend about 2 to 3 hours per session at the pool. And they have to wake up very early in the morning. So it's not just a process that we do with the uni kids, but some of those secondary schools and those in IBs and poly, we go through the same process with them as well. I mean, the rest is the biggest thing that will help in your studies and your training. So that is something that, I mean, we push them and we challenge them for sure. But if they don't rest, then all sorts of problems will occur. So definitely, on their end, they have to work closely with the school, but on our side, as their coaches, we have to plan it out, plan their training based on their school schedule. They will go back and forth between us and the school, and then work out something suitable. Yes, we train 8 to 10 times a week, but if they had to miss one session, that's fine. We work around, adjust the training cycle for the swimmers. And I mean, it's worked out quite well. I mean, Amanda and Tiong, they are SEA Games gold medalists. They are on the verge of qualifying for Olympics, which is supposed to take place right now or soon, but I think it's postponed. So still trying to qualify for Olympics next year. Yeah.
Thanks, Leonard. So Mounisha, may I come to you, and could you give us a sense of what your daily schedule is like in university, your training times, your school times, so that people understand what a day and a week looks like for a student athlete?
Okay, so for water polo, it's similar to swimming in the sense that we have double sessions. So we train 9 times a week. We have 3 morning sessions that are from like 6 to 8 a.m. And then we train every night for 3 hours from 7 to 10 on every day except Saturday. So usually in the morning we wake up and go for training. Then I have quite a few teammates who are studying at NUS. So after morning training, we grab breakfast. Then someone will drive us, or we take the train together to school. And I have lectures all the way from like 8:30 to 1 p.m., 12 p.m., depending on the day. Then I will usually have tutorials or practicals in the afternoon. And after that, I go back to stadium for my night training. And in between all the free time, I will either try to nap because I need the rest, or I will try to catch up my work. Yeah, that's like what I do on a daily basis.
Which leaves me with the question, how many hours of sleep do you actually get?
Sleep is very important, and I used to be very bad at like sleeping, and my coach like would force me to track my sleep and report back to him, and also like our team psychologist, and then they work through like a lot of methods that will help me get quality sleep, even though like let's say some nights I'm only getting 4 hours. So they make sure that I compromise by sleeping more on other days. So I do have a pretty good sleep routine right now.
Great. Simon will be happy to hear that. Kerstin, what about you?
I was quite shocked when I heard her schedule. I was like, whoa, how does she even find time to even study or even sleep? It's quite intense. Me again, well, I think I'm quite pampered now that I hear from all of y'all. Because we get to choose whatever timetable we want. There's 4 slots throughout the day. It starts from 8 a.m. all the way till like 10:30. And it's from like 8 a.m. to like 11:30, 12 to 3, 3 to 6, or like 7 to 10, around there. So you can choose when you want your classes to be. So I know when my training times are. Now it is at 9 a.m. So 9 till 11. So I always make sure that my training, so my training is either 9 to 11 or like 4 to 6. So I will only put classes at 12 to 3 because I don't like night classes. So I'll just put my classes only just 12 to 3. If I can't get the time slot I want, then athletes could ask Mr. Eric for help. But I'm quite lucky as well. So far, I've been getting the class that I want because, of course, you cannot just depend on like the school. You got to try your best also to get the class. Like, don't just depend on just the school. You got to be proactive as well. Take your own initiative to get what you want. So that's why I'm quite lucky also. And I think what helped in my school also is that we only have, so we don't have like lectures and tutorials. We only have like one class, which I think is considered tutorials only. So we have both the lectures and tutorials all in one. So one session is only about 3 hours and 15 minutes. So if you have 5 modules to take, because you can take from 4 to 6 modules, 4 to 6 around there. So that means you only got 4 to 6 classes a week. So you can really plan your schedule well. I normally only try to take 4 classes of max 5. I cannot take anything more. So far, I'm already entering year 4 and I only just started taking my 5 classes this year. So I've been taking 4 classes. So my class is only 4 times a week. 4 times 3 hours is only 12 hours a week. So it's quite manageable for me so far.
Okay, thanks, Kerstin. Xuan, what's your experience like? What's your daily and week look like?
So for me, I usually start the day with school. So sometimes I have 8 a.m. classes. Then it goes on until around mid-afternoon. And then I will usually head back to hall and then either take a short nap before training or finish up my work. Then in the evening, I'll head down to training until about, it usually ends about 9 plus. Then I'll either go and grab dinner with my teammates or I'll just go back to hall. And then I think after showering, I'll usually like die on my bed for a while because usually I'll be super tired after training, like cannot move kind. So I'll just rest for maybe like 1 hour. Then I'll try to force myself to get up and prepare for lessons the next day or finish up my work. Yeah, then it just repeats like that.
Thanks, Xuan. Utsav, what about you?
Right, I'll probably give the most loyally answer, which is like it depends. It depends on the timing, whether there's any upcoming tournament or not. So like when there is a tournament coming up, we have trainings from like 7-ish to 8-ish to, and sometimes it goes up like 11 p.m. And that's almost every day. So in a way, I sort of like go for trainings depending on like how much work I have to do, and my sleep cycle is really bad during those periods. I think there's one period where I had a fractured finger, so I think that was a period where I could actually just focus on like studies. But I think as Eric mentioned earlier, for law school, for year 1 and year 2, the curriculum is quite set, and it's very difficult for the school to like really deviate that much, and you have classes almost every day. Whereas once I moved to like year 3 and year 4, you get to choose a lot of electives, so you can choose modules where you can write research papers, which means that you can do it more on your own free time. So yeah, basically in year 3 and year 4, it was a lot better for me to manage, and then I could go for the training sessions as well.
Thanks, Utsav. So Huimin, back in the day for you, what was your schedule like as a student athlete?
It's about 2 years ago since I graduated from NTU Sociology. I remember scheduling my classes so that they avoid the training days. So on non-training days, we have the gym. On training days, we train from 7 to maybe 9:30 or 10. So in the day, there will be classes like tutorials and lectures, and I will make sure to get a quick nap in. Yeah, and then I will monitor on my Fitbit how much sleep I'm getting, because that's very important for an athlete. Yeah, so that's a typical day for me. Yeah, last time.
Thanks, Huimin. There's a question here for Kerstin about your LOA, and I think I would love to hear from Eric, Law, and Chiang about LOA at your respective schools. So Kerstin, when you took the LOA, what was it like? Did you do home-based learning or not do schoolwork entirely? I think some folks here may not appreciate what an LOA is. So LOA stands for leave of absence. Maybe you can share your experience, Kerstin, when what LOA is all about, so that future generations will always take LOA because they realize there's this loophole now.
I did not study at all throughout the whole period. So our semester is about 5 months, so completely never touched. And then I went into holidays, the summer holidays, so 8 months without school. And a lot of people told me that that's a very bad idea. You should still try to like get onto some courses, keep your mind active, keep your mind fresh. But I completely did not do any schoolwork at all, which I think it would be helpful if you all were to take LA, you all were to really also try to still get on some courses or read some book, still, so that when you go back to school, it won't be a huge shock for you again. Because it was for me, not studying for 8 months and then, oh shit, study, the pressure is there. I gotta be studying, training, it's no longer just training, sleeping, it was really very enjoyable. But I think one mistake I made during my LOA, as much as a lot of people have advised me not to do it, I still do it, is to work. So a lot of people say once you got LOA, you have a lot of free time, and it will really make you wanna, hey, should I earn some pocket money, because I got so much free time now. And a lot of people who have took LOA, everyone told me, no matter what, do not work. And I said, yeah, okay. I mean, because if I'm gonna train, I took leave just to train, and I shouldn't work. But then I think like 2 months into my LOA, I went to work instead. Yeah, so I think that was a huge mistake. In the end, although I work with my association, so they were very flexible into the working schedule I wanted, but still the pressure is still there, especially during last year when the association was very short of manpower. So there was quite a lot of work for me to clear, and it definitely have affected my recovery from sports. So even if you take LA, there will be really a lot of free time, but don't work. So should listen to what people say, try to get into some courses, because it will help you kill a bit of time. Get involved into like more recovery, reading up more about how you can improve your sports, not just don't work. That was like one big mistake that I made. But when I realized that, I stopped my work. I told my association that I really have to focus on my sports now, and they supported that afterwards.
Okay, thanks, Kerstin. So, Chai Liang or Eric or Law, this process of LOA?
Sure. I think for SMU, for the elite athletes in SMU, I try and advise them carefully, and this is of course always in consultation with the faculty. I always tell them, if you see, your semester is just 4 months, and if you really just take that off, it means you got to add on after that. That means you are taking either an extra semester or an extra year. So are you prepared to do that? Alternative is to take less modules, but that also means you may need to take extra semesters. But all said, kind of thing, it boils down to what can the athlete cope with, all right? How big is the preparation for the games, for example? So like, okay, Tiong Zhen Wei also took LOA, but basically he was trying to prepare and qualify for the Olympics. So that's big, that's huge. So then he needed to do that, all right? There was another athlete who says, okay, maybe I'll just take 2 modules. Even then, the faculty say, you sure you can cope with it? You're training like day and night kind of thing. But at the end of the day, this athlete, of course, the student athlete has to decide what you can cope with. You can actually take as little as 2 modules. I think take 1, maybe not worth it, because you got to pay the semester fee, and then you to just do 1 module, maybe not. So maybe just do 2. But those on scholarships or what may be a bit better. But even then, the school would advise kind of thing. So yes, it's all a matter of planning, all right, and what's the need is. And basically, like you see, when you have really the plans in front of you, so therefore it's consultation with the NSA concern, the coaches and the faculties. Then when you put it and lay out all on the table, it's a lot much easier, it's clearer, and then you can make a decision. Yeah.
Thanks, Eric.
Jump in here.
Yeah, sure, Kerstin, go ahead, please.
When I took LA, I don't have to pay school fees, okay? So don't have to worry. And for SMU, we normally complete our studies in 4 years, or we can extend to 6 years. So yes, for those that actually, because we have a certain amount of modules you must clear. So if you need longer time, you just got to pay more money. But if you take LA, you completely don't pay that semester fee. So that was helpful. And as much as it sounds like it's very easy to get LA, but like I meet with Eric first, and we had a meal. I remember at the coffee place, and he questioned me, what is it that you want to achieve? He wants to know my plans, because he don't want to encourage you just taking LA just for the fun of it, or just cause you just want to rest a bit. It must be really, you have concrete plans, you know what you actually want, and you know that this means that you're gonna extend your studies afterwards, or what's your plans afterwards. He really wants to make sure you know what you're doing and not just take LA for the fun of it. So you have to have a plan before you take an LA as well.
Great, Kerstin, thanks. Chai Liang, would you like to speak about LOA at NT?
Yeah, sure. LOA actually is getting more common nowadays, where after all, the student nowadays will think that life is not just study. Doesn't mean you need 3 years or 4 years to complete your university. So taking LOA for some purpose that you think is worthy, I think it's something that we are all starting to encourage. So need not just stay onto the normal path. For sports especially, like last semester or the one before, even Kelvin, the fencer, which is quite, it's the first time I actually knew a medicine student took LOA for SEA Games preparations. And in between, he went for WUG as well, the World University Games. So it's really how individual values the experience that you want to trade off in that sense. Yeah, but you'll be good as a totality. Discuss all this plan with your so-called academic advisor, so they'll be able to help you to advise you on what kind of credits, what kind of courses, modules to what I'm trying to say is try to plan your whole 3 or 4 years as a long-term plan rather than take it as it comes, that kind of thing. It'll be easier for you to complete the whole candidature in the best way possible. Yeah, so it's good to have a longer runway to work on your whole 2 to 4 year plans. Thanks.
My side has certainly changed. All right. Yes, Chai Liang is right. It's very common now for students to apply for LA, take a leap year to travel. Gone are the days where if your parents feel that if you take a LA or you take a year out, you are losing out from your cohort who will enter into the workforce sooner than you. They will get promoted earlier than you. No more. I spoke with some parents before, and they are really they want their kids to do well in sports, and they are very supportive of their children to take LOA. I remember talking with Chen Xiang's national hurdlers dad, you know. He's in medicine, you know, but the father was very clear. Chen Xiang has only that many years where he's in his prime, you know, for athletics. And if he needs to take a year out from medicine to pursue his dreams, I think he took a semester out, if I'm not wrong. All right. Then we have Jasmine Sir, Him Wei preparing for Olympics, and there is a lot of personalized planning with their faculties, you know, to move, either take LOA or like what Eric said, reduce their load for the semester, you know, and the faculties are very kind. They will tell them what are the easy modules to do, you know, so that they can sail by the one semester or two. You know, they can still finish within their 4 years if they want to, or if they do take an LOA, then yeah, they can finish later. So yes, it's careful planning, personalized planning, personalized to the athlete itself, actually.
Thanks, Law Chai Liang. So there are a few models, right? So you study full-time and train and compete full-time. You can take an LOA where you take the semester off or even a year off, depending on your training and competition plans. And then there's also a third possibility. You take fewer modules and you just spread it out over a longer period and maybe graduate in 5 or 6 years, but with maybe a significant financial cost, because you still pay the same amount of fees each semester, no matter how many modules you take. Correct? Okay. So those are the options ahead of you. Going back to all the athletes, my 1 or 2 final questions for you is, as you moved into university life, certainly it's a step up in terms of intensity, in terms of the academic pressure, but at the same time, you're also stepping up into a higher level in terms of your sport. So both are intense pursuits. What motivated you to keep going? I think this is the time of life where a lot of people drop out. We see a lot of attrition in the system. I'm sure you all have seen teammates fall out. What motivated you to continue training and competing at a high level at the university level, knowing how intensely competitive and how much pressure there is when it comes to academics in Singapore? Maybe Utsav, you could start.
Right. I mean, there is always that dilemma in your mind, right? Whether am I going to focus more on studies or am I focusing too much on cricket? And that sort of really gets into your head. And I've sort of tried to, like, you know, for a while just say I'll maybe focus entirely on studies. But what has happened is that I always find myself being pulled back to the game, because somewhat as athletes, you just end up like finding like your identity. Like, you know, when you're not doing well, you sort of like rely on the sport. And then once you start doing well, then your confidence level starts going up. And then you realize that sort of effect sort of translates into like better performance academically as well. And before I started uni, I remember I had this chat with this senior partner, and he mentioned that he just said this one line where he said that I like hiring athletes. And to me, that didn't make any sense at all. I'm like, and you know, sometimes when you're an athlete in a class, you realize that you're always lagging behind. You sometimes will feel stupid because, you know, you're not up to speed with the rest. And it gets a little bit lonely as well. But I think there is a lot of value to the experience that you're actually going through. And that sort of makes you a lot more prepared to actually overcome all these challenges and moving forward into the future, do well in whatever field that you choose to go. So.
Thanks, Utsav. How about you, Xuan?
So for me, I think it's more of like, I really enjoy playing sports so much that, you know, like, unless I really, really cannot handle it, I would not want to give up on it. So I think before I entered uni, I told myself that like, it will definitely be harder to manage than before, but if I don't try, I'll never know. And I don't want to have the regret that I give up because I think I cannot handle. Yeah, so I think for me, I just decided to take that leap and just try my best. And I think there's only like so many years, you know, that we can play sport, we can do sports for. So I think right now, while I really want to continue.
By the way, Xuan is our NUS sports scholar. So she has no choice. She must continue playing sports.
No pressure, Xuan.
Joking.
Mounisha, what about you? What kept you going?
For me, like our team was formed 10 months before SEA Games. So we traveled to so many countries and like had a lot of training camps and competitions leading up, which is how like we bonded and got closer together. And like half the team is like studying in uni together like right now. So like the fact that we're all going through this together was what kept each other motivated. Cause like when like one person is like, oh my God, I really don't think I can do it. Maybe after this SEA Games, I should just stop. Even though like this is our first SEA Games together, then we just kept pushing each other to like keep going. And like we all have like a passion for the sport. And like, cause in medicine, there are quite a lot of national athletes. And in my batch alone, like I know of a national fencer and a shooter. And both of them, like when we knew each other, they told me that they were going to retire after 2019 SEA Games, which I was quite shocked about. But then to them, they only wanted to focus on their academics, which is understandable. But then because I just started playing this sport and I really like love it too much to let it go so soon. So the passion really kept me going. And also I have a very good support system from my team, my coach, and also my family, because when I told them that I want to be committed to this, like they were really okay with it. And they just made sure to tell me that I know how to manage my time. Yeah, so.
Thanks, Mounisha. Before I get to Huimin and Kerstin, we have about 5 minutes to go. I promise you 1 hour. And so if you have any questions, please do raise it in the chat. So before Huimin, yes, your turn next. What about you? What kept you going?
I would really say it's two things. One is the sport itself, and secondly is my teammates. Why the sport itself? Because rugby is such a challenging sport. It demands so much from you mentally, physically, and everything. And I would say the sport has changed me and has given to me so much that I can't just walk away from it like that. Even if the going gets tough, I know that if the going gets tough, there is definitely a way around it to balance both, be it work and rugby or studies and rugby. Yeah, and the second thing is my teammates and my coaches. They've given so much for me to I cannot just walk away like that just because I can't manage it. It's just not, it's not deserving. Yeah, I haven't given back enough yet, you know. So I feel that keeps me going. Like just being at training and being around everybody. Yeah, that keeps me going. Yes.
Thanks, Huimin. So, Kerstin, what about you?
Yeah, exactly like what all of them say. It's really a teammate. So for me, because I train, my coach trains back then, also trains SMU team as well. And the SMU team only trains like twice or thrice a week. And I train like 6 times a week. So apart from these 2-3 times where I got teammates to train, I'm usually training alone. So that is very tough. And actually like in January, December, actually, I felt like quitting this sport already, because it was so tough to train alone. Because like everybody said, teammates really keep you going. And when I'm training almost all the time alone, especially when people normally focus on their studies first when I train with SMU, right? So I don't normally have a training group at all. So it's very painful for me. So that's why I made the decision to go back to sports school instead to train, because then I will be in an environment with a lot of people to train with every day who is all very high performance focused. And that switch was very helpful. So I switched in February only, because now I'm always ready to go for training now. I am already thinking about how can I get LA for my next competition to aim for, because that passion I have with me is reignited again, having a whole group to train together, to work towards a goal together. So I'm just glad that I did not retire. As much as I said that I wanted to stop, but there's something deep inside you that really don't know how to walk away from the sport. And I think that's something maybe the sports organizations can look into, how to help athletes after retirement. I think that's something that many athletes might struggle with, because I cannot walk away from a sport yet. I think many people cannot. So it might be a struggle next time when athletes retire.
Thanks, Kerstin. Law, I'm glad that you brought up Xuan's sports scholarship, because I was just going to ask you, Eric and Chai Liang, what are some of the support structures you have at your universities? So obviously, scholarships are one of those. Special admission criteria is another. So maybe you could just briefly share some of these support structures and speak to the future student athletes here who may be coming to your university. So you are on show now, you have to sell.
We welcome all national athletes to join us. All right. Very humbly, NUS, we offer 10 full sports scholarship. We wish we could give more, but of course the pie is always limited. So 5 per year to incoming freshmen, and this typically usually goes to national athletes of sorts, you know, and then 5 goes to incoming freshmen, 5 goes to current students, current NUS students who may not have gotten, who did not get a scholarship while they are freshmen, but prove themselves over 1-2 years that they are good in both their studies as well as sports. For these 10 sports scholars, what do we look for? We look for good sportsmen. We also look for leadership, all right? Because they are catalysts of change. We are not getting them in to help NUS win medals. We are getting them in to raise the standards and influence the rest of the NUS athletes. So leadership is very important to us. So currently, at steady state, 10 scholarships a year. So over 4 years, we will have at steady state 40 NUS sports scholars at any one time, which costs us a fortune, you know. Yeah, we also have discretionary. We no longer call it discretionary admission. We call it aptitude-based admission. I think the same as all the other universities, where if your studies do not meet the grades that we want, by virtue of your sporting talents, you can still get admitted into the university. Yeah. So these are just some key. I leave some airtime to my counterparts in the other university.
Eric, what about you?
So similarly, we have the Yip Pin Sue Scholarship at SMU. We give out 2 a year, but basically what I intended for the scholarship didn't quite turn out to be, because it still has this academic criteria which is still quite high. So I always tell the scholars or applicants to say, you make sure you really want it and you can cope with it, because it can be pressurizing as well. So just imagine you already got your sports schedule, your trainings, competitions, and your studies, and now you got to get almost, not straight A's, but at least B's. That's pretty tough, kind of thing. So, and although on a normal student, probably getting B's is not a problem, but I think if you're juggling with your sports and all that, it can be pretty tough. So we had scholars that struggles, all right? So I would say, yeah, so it's good. If you really think you can cope, it's great. So scholarship is one. So yeah, Law mentioned aptitude-based, but that also, I think it goes year on year, the threshold that the faculties can take, kind of thing. But I think like this year, because I think a lot of applicants locally, because they can't go overseas, you know, it's because of the COVID thing, everybody's applying local. So there's a lot more applicants, and I think the cutoff points are a lot more higher. So even aptitude-based, a lot got booted out, kind of thing. But at least there is that avenue. So we're trying to help people to come in anyway. Yeah. But that also, I think there are corporations out there that are very helpful. Like for example, and probably ties in with certain faculties, like accountancy, just got this Deloitte. Deloitte's very helpful with national athletes, I must tell you. And I took a class once of a sports management class, and I found out that a lot of accountancy students down there, they already got jobs before they even graduate. You know, kind of. And then when they do internships, I don't know, Deloitte can take almost the whole class for internship. I don't know, they got a lot of spaces. So they've been very helpful, and that helps as well. Okay, kind of thing. Okay.
Thanks, Eric.
Yeah, for NTU, we still do not have sports scholarship. We are working on that. But what we do have is sports grant. Ours are more unique. Our grant is more like a yearly basis based on the performance, achievements, and contributions. All in all, in the previous academic year, we offered a grant to 4 athletes, amount of $2,000. It's not very much, but at least it's something to help athletes to offset some of your training expenses and all. But NTU also has other kind of generic scholarships, like Nanyang Scholarship, all those, which quite a lot of them actually. So it is technically not limited to sports related kind of scholarships we are looking at. For discretionary admission, all those are quite standard. I think all the unis are quite similar in that sense. Of course, similar for all, probably with the on-campus accommodation support. All those are something that we definitely could help all athletes and all. NTU side, my team of colleagues at the sports office, we are the one very happy to help and support and refer any of you to discuss any kind of thing with your schools and make arrangement that you require. Yeah, that's all we offer to a great extent. Thanks.
Thanks, Chai Liang. Okay, I promised you all 1 hour. We've reached our 1 hour mark, but don't go yet. We would really appreciate if you all could take the time to share your feedback with us about today's session. I will give you some time to go to menti.com and use that code to give us feedback. And as you do the feedback, I will ask each of the student athletes here on our panel one last question. Okay, name me one highlight of your student athlete experience at university so far, and one major sacrifice you had to make as a student athlete. Okay, one major highlight which has been like unforgettable because you are a student athlete, and one major sacrifice you've had to make as a student athlete. Okay, so as everybody else goes to menti.com and give us their feedback, I would like maybe Xuan to go first. What has been a highlight for you as a student athlete at NUS that has, that you'll remember for the rest of your life, and you will tell your children, your grandchildren, and great-grandchildren?
Highlight. I think for me, because I've only been uni for about 1 year, then actually last sem there was like the COVID situation, everything. So I was at home most of the time. So I think the main part was in my first semester. I was very lucky to travel with the rugby team a lot overseas. So in that whole semester, right, it actually felt like I was half in school, half traveling. So yeah, it was like every 2 weeks we'll fly overseas. Then after that 2 weeks I'll be in school for a bit. Then yeah, so I really felt like that period I really experienced like what it's like to actually be a student athlete, because before that, last time when I was still in like JC or secondary school, it's like I do travel, but I usually like go once in a while, like maybe during holidays or like a few times a year only. It wasn't like flying back and forth. So I think, yeah, that was like my first really like experience of like a real student athlete life, I guess. Yeah.
And what has been one major sacrifice you've had to make?
Major sacrifice. I think going to university, I think one thing I look forward to a lot was actually the hall experience. So because I was very lucky that the NUS Sport Scholarship, they actually sponsor a hall stay. So I think I was looking forward to it a lot. But then because I was traveling so much and like so much trainings, right, I really couldn't commit to like the hall events, like go all the hall activities and things like that. So I think the social life was something that I had to sacrifice. But I was very lucky. My hallmates and profs and everything, they were very, very supportive. They would like encourage me to just go and then fill me in and like, yeah, just things like that.
Great, thanks, Xuan. How about you, Kerstin?
Something super enjoyable apart from the LOA, because they have to study, right? Every year, no, not every year, every 2 years, there's this thing called the ASEAN University Games. So we get to qualify for our different sports, and this is a chance where we actually get to mix with different universities all together. So the last one I went was 2 years ago in Myanmar, And I went with a couple of people here. With Rooney was my team manager and Kenneth as well. Although they are from NUS, but we really mix around a lot. And this is a chance where we really get to be together with many other universities. So that was very enjoyable, especially with a group of people who share the same interest as you, which is sports. And the next ASEAN University Games is supposed to happen this December. I don't know if it's still happening, but that was something that I was really looking forward to. So I really hope it still goes on. But of course, with the current situation, safety first. So we'll really see how it goes. One sacrifice that I had to make was my grades. Because, you know, when you spend a lot of time training, you can't spend all your time in just studying. Of course, your grades got to go, a bit of it. So you need to be sure, you need to know like what your expectation in school. If you want to do well in your studies, then part of your sports got to go a bit. But if you want to do really well in your sports, then of course you got to sacrifice a bit of your grades. I mean, you don't have to be like a straight A student, you know. B+ is good as well, B is good as well. I'm only getting max B, but I'm happy with that. I'm having a very enjoyable studies and sports life, because even when I still go for school activities as well, I even did a whole freshman camp. So that was enjoyable for me.
Thanks, Kerstin. Huimin, what about you? One highlight and one sacrifice.
The one highlight for me is definitely the traveling, because previously, before I joined rugby, the furthest I went was probably Malaysia. Rugby has really allowed me to travel to many places. We have training camp, we have training trips, and then we also have the official competition trips. Yeah, I still remember I went to China. That was my first tour, and I was like, wow, this is Qingdao, you know. Yeah, so the traveling is definitely I'm very fortunate. Yeah, very grateful also. One sacrifice is definitely the social life. Yeah, but I think when you don't see your friends often and then you suddenly see them, it's like absence makes the heart fonder. So it's also okay the social life, you sacrifice a bit, but when you see them, you have a lot more things to talk about. So yeah, it's not really a setback, yeah, I would say.
Thanks, Huimin. Mounisha.
I think mine is very similar to Xuan, and like, cause in the sense that the fun part is traveling, cause I really like went to a lot of places with my teammates this year, and even though the training was very hard, we really had a lot of fun in the places, and I had to sacrifice a lot of like social time with people in school, especially cause this is my first year. Then I really like missed out the entire orientation period. So like people literally knew me as the phantom in school. So if like they saw me in school, they were like damn surprised to see me around. Yeah, but eventually so when COVID came around, then our trips got cancelled. So like then I got to know more people. So you don't really like, I mean, it was a very small sacrifice to make. Yeah.
Thanks. And Utsav.
Right. So right on the bat, I think one of the more memorable parts, of course, being like playing some small role in like Singapore's rise, because I think Singapore recently like broke into the world's top 20. So I think that we just playing some part in that was something that's good. But I think if you want to say a story to like your grandchildren or something, it will have to be the memories. So whether it's like the NUS cricket team or like my club's cricket team or just other people that you just continuously meet and you just grow such a strong bond with, I think those moments really stand out in the long run. As for sacrifice, I have to completely agree with Kerstin. I think in year 1 and year 2, my grades did take a toll. I did grow some eye bags, but I think looking back, I don't think I would have had it any other way.
Okay, thank you everybody. Thanks to my colleagues at NYSI for helping me manage this event. Thanks Law, Eric and Chai Liang for chipping in and giving your respective universities' perspective. So I hope you all have found it useful, and we look forward to seeing you again for our future webinar.